Welcome to Writer Syndrome, podcast about writing from start to finish. This episode's topic, we're getting into themes. I'm Russ Capasso. Joining me as always is Tim Letney. Tim.
What's my theme?
I was going to say, how was the Devils Bruins game last night? But sure, you can go ahead and...
Devils Bruins game was great. I brought my kids. And what's my theme? I think I've got a bunch of themes and sub-themes. Right now I've got health. I'm feeling a little sick.
Yeah.
For this podcast.
Man versus nature. I get okay.
A little man versus nature. Yeah. A little good versus evil.
Maybe a little revenge on nature for making you sick. Maybe. Yeah. Courage and perseverance.
I think I've got kind of a if I knew then what I know now theme, It would have saved me some time.
Yeah, a little bit. I think on
How about you?
What's
What's your theme, Russ?
I think is redemption. I need to get back. I need to redeem myself on getting back on my writing horse. Right?
Red Dead Redemption, right?
Yeah. No, I don't need to go play video games. I mean, I will. Now you said that, I do have one mission left in that game. So yeah, we're talking about themes. Let's do like a quick definition of themes, just in case.
Yeah, I think that's necessary and arguable, no matter what we say.
This would be the one thing I think. So we always look across, I do a Google search and I find all these different articles from different places, Readsy, Masterclass, Grammarly. They have all the writing blogs have all got these, topics that they cover. And I think this is the one thing that was common across all of them, straightforward, right? It's the kind of like the underlying, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. I feel like you're going to be like, that's not what I think. That's how that goes.
No, I think you're right. I just think that everything when it comes to like literary devices and constructs is super debatable because people just write nonstop about what it is.
Yes.
Like I saw one article, somebody like used the word theme is the meaning, and it's like, it's not the meaning. It's the idea,
which is, it's the like underlying meaning or underlying idea, right? That you explore in a novel or a story. I mean, that I think is pretty.
Well, I think there's a small bit of nuance. I completely agree with you. Like that's what it is.
Overarching. Yeah.
It's like, the underlying idea behind your writing. And I think the difference between idea and meaning is that an idea can be a thought or a question, and meaning is maybe an answer. And I think the difference is that maybe the author doesn't need, and I think that's like what the argument is. The author doesn't need to necessarily provide the answer to the question they're posing. They just need to pose the question, like any good lazy writer, and and that's where I think that reader-writer relationship happens, where then the person who's reading kind of formulates their own solution or thinks about it a little bit.
You want the reader to maybe think about, it's not the plot necessarily. The plot is just the thing that kind of moves characters around, and how you explore and or convey the theme. I think that's kind of interesting because there's lots of ways you can do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, using your characters, number one, right? Your characters can absolutely convey theme. Even ties back to our conversation about characterization, indirect and direct characterization, how you use that and how characters act and react to situations and their roles in the story could also convey a theme. Dialogue, obviously. So all the I think all the nuance and devices within writing can be ways to convey that idea or underlying meaning you're trying to get across.
Do you think that your plot should be in service of the theme? Wouldn't that make sense?
Yeah, I know. I think so. I'm thinking of my own work and my own work. What a pretentious thing to say. My own, what a douchebag thing to say. I'm just thinking of my own work, Tim.
Hold on. I'm going to take my monocle off.
Let me get my long cigarette out. Hold on. Pack those real quick. I'm thinking about host and yes, the plot I think definitely serves the theme. I think when I first started writing that, I didn't have like a direct idea of a theme that I was trying to convey. I was just like, here's a plot and here's some characters. Let me get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And I don't think the theme really emerged until like maybe a second draft or third draft. And I was like, oh, this is it. But then
is it that you didn't have the intentionality like to have your theme in the beginning that wasn't formulated yet?
Yeah.
But it was present in the writing, right? Like, is it that was it that you just hadn't kind of given it shape yet, but it was there?
Yes.
Can you share what the theme is for host?
I think there's a couple of things in there going on. I think it's kind of strange because like we were talking about this beforehand, and we've said this about many other topics we've talked about. You can have multiple themes throughout a story, right?
Yep.
I think I have like themes for specific characters. I guess the overarching one would be, I don't know if this is on any list, but would probably be maybe trust or power,
Mm.
and, who has that power and how people are using it. And then that would be, I think, the theme I was kind of came together as, second or third or fourth draft. But then like each character has kind of their own theme. Like Lilo, she's on kind of like a survival, man, person versus society, theme. And she's got, that's kind of like almost like a B story theme, but then ties back to like the bigger picture. So yeah, I think there's kind of a couple different layers to it, but I think the core one was power dynamic and trust amongst people, all the characters within the story.
If you had to put that into a question, if you were like, well, how would you formulate a question on that theme?
How would I formulate a question? Jeez, what are you doing to me this morning? I thought you were sick. Well, I thought you weren't prepared.
I'm ready. I'm grilling you.
You grilling me.
Give me a question.
My first thought was like, who do you trust? I don't know if that's the right way. I don't know. How would I formulate that into a question? Who has the power? Who can you trust? Who
watches the Watchmen?
Who watches the Watchmen? Maybe something along those lines. I don't know. That's a great question, Tim.
What's funny, dude, about yours, right? And I think it's just what I took from it, right? So the theme that I got from yours, which probably isn't the theme, but it was something that stood out to me, was family a little bit, like the familiar relationship between Absolutely. Elliot and his father. And even though his dad was kind of this missing space throughout the book, since he had passed very early in it or before the book starts, it always felt like that was the driving force before like Elliot as a character to go seeking the truth. And so, I mean, to that point, I do feel like there's a lot of times when there will be multiple themes at play in a good book. And what stands out the most will probably be what's most important to the reader at that time. So I am rereading White Noise, or finished it up, and there's so many themes in that book, but the one that stands out to me, having read Ernest Becker, is fear of death. To me, like, fear of death is like central to that. But there is commodification and consumerism and its effects on family dynamics and simulation. Like, there's a ton of themes going on, and you could write senior dissertations on all of them and they'd all be right. And I think maybe that's what makes very rereadable books. But I think if you do a good job, I mean, yes, it makes a lot of sense to have one central theme. But I think if you care about a lot of things as you're writing, more themes will probably come out in your work.
Yes, that was another one too. Friends and family, I guess, because I was thinking more of the dynamic between Lilo, Elliot, and Jake just being like kind of like this kind of new, friend family unit that's coming together to solve a problem. So I think that would definitely be another theme that kind of sits in there. But it's funny how like all these things don't come up until you get through like later drafts, I think, like you said, I think when coming into like the first draft, I just wanted to get characters through and I wasn't really thinking about theme. Looking at like future stories, I think I want to have at least a couple of ideas of what I'm trying to express in the story.
Yeah.
Not that it needs to be set in stone, because nothing needs to be set in stone, but I think it's a nice guiding light to tie back to like, okay, how can I make this connect to the plot? How can I now have the characters tied to that theme? What are they saying? How are they reacting? That reinforces what I'm trying to say, instead of trying to like add that in, post. Which is, I think, becomes a little bit more difficult.
I definitely started with a theme in mind. I won't say it was fleshed out as much. Like, I had the concept of identity and like authentic identity. And I talked to you about it like before I had started writing. And it was kind of flimsy, but it was there. And and I think because of that, I mean, my whole book is in service of the theme, which is what makes me feel a little self-conscious about it, because it's a little on the nose, I think.
Yeah.
And then I have like recurring motifs to like that allude back to that theme. But there's certainly other themes other than identity in mine. I mean, there's consumerism is in there.
Yep.
I definitely have an undercurrent of like commentary on corporate animal farms and like.
Yep. You did have a couple ideas for themes when you came into it, but more kind of came into shape as you were progressing.
Yeah, I mean, when I had the concept of my main character, it was very much her trying to be her authentic self.
Yeah.
And when she's trying to do that, like, she's doing it wrong, and she's actually becoming just kind of like a doppelganger, or, really even a less authentic version of herself by striving to like be part of the scene and be seen as like, lower class and like listening to punk. It's she's just wearing a costume, right?
Yeah.
And it slowly becomes apparent to her through the story that that's the case. So it was always there, but I'll say that the character work that I was doing with her wasn't in line. Like her character motivations and the theme, I don't think were in service of one another during the first draft. I really had to go back and clean that up.
Yeah. It's almost kind of a little bit of coming of age in there for her, maybe.
Yeah,
Like,
there's coming of age.
right?
I mean, there's
Like,
family and friendship are in there. There's
yeah.
even good versus evil.
I was gonna
there's
say,
like
yeah.
there's like and as I was reading, through for this podcast, there's the 6 examples of themes, the 10, the 200 examples of themes.
It's like,
it's like a grab bag, like you can. I think you're going to have pieces of a lot of the big ones.
Yeah.
But I think one should loom much larger than the rest, right? There should be a central theme.
I agree.
And then you can have smaller themes that kind of cut throughout. Yeah. I feel.
Yep.
And I know that sounds like maybe contrary to what the definition of theme is, which is the underlying idea. But I do think there are many ideas and many underlying ideas behind good works of fiction.
Yeah. And I guess there's also the layer of, and this is just, I think, with experience of how do you make those themes not feel so overt, and then how do you do it in a way that where the characters and what they're saying, what they're doing, and the symbolism you're using, or metaphors you're using throughout, kind of don't hit it too hard. I mean, I just finished reading Dune, and those hit pretty hard, and there's a lot of them, and it's like it's interesting because like reading through this like I just finished this, like my 3rd time reading through it, and it's like I think the one I was locked onto this time was more the like religion power side of things, which is like very upfront. It's very in your face. But then there's so many other things there. Like obviously there's good versus evil. There's this savior hero kind of theme going on. There's revenge in there. There's family in a weird way. Family is throughout. But that was the one, and obviously the ecology thing and man versus nature and stuff like this. So, but the religion one, I think I was really religion and power and like that dynamic that was kind of throughout that entire story. But
and then isn't there a huge one about like ecology and environmentalism that's in there as well?
Oh God, yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like huge. And I think this time going through, I started picking up a little. It's there. It's not hard to see, but I started seeing some of the more smaller, I think, nuances referenced, about it that I was like, oh, this is interesting. So, but and obviously the metaphor, symbolism, whatever you want to say, spice and oil is very obvious. or a resource that some group has that another group doesn't have and wants. So I, like you said earlier, you can Google themes, right? And you'll come across the 6 common, the 10 common, the 20 common themes. Like, all right, let's all relax here. But I think there are some staples that are like kind of carry throughout those. Like I kept seeing like coming of age was always one. Obviously, revenge, good versus evil is always like a common one. Mm-hmm. But then there was like some nuanced ones that I thought were like this one. It's got like 20. It's like circle of life, faith versus doubt, family. I think is a pretty common one, and then it breaks down all like the it's justice, loneliness, and then like the man versus nature, man versus self, man versus society. It's like,
oh God. What resource is this? Just so folks know.
This one's writers.com, common themes in literature. And it's a pretty extensive write-up. They have you like, here's the 20 themes, here's kind of like a definition of it, and then here's a couple examples that sit in there. But again, as we've learned, you could say, Man vs. Society, 1984, sure, by George Orwell. Yeah, that makes sense. But there are probably other books that you drop in a category here that could fit into like 2 or 3 other ones as we've been kind of getting through.
Totally.
So I feel like being cautious of staying away from making sure it's like stuck in this one bucket is kind of important.
But just like that, man, like I feel like you don't need to be completely cornered into one theme, but it'll make your life a lot easier, I think, if you're to have one in mind before you start writing again. Yeah. You don't want to have to come up with it after your first draft. Because there's some things that you probably could have done that would have been in service of that greater theme and that could have helped the writing and made it a little more enjoyable. So
it kind of acts as like as a glue too between all the devices that you use to kind of reference it in a way, right? It's kind of like the heart of it, and it's
Yeah, that's a good point.
You can have multiple, but it like you said earlier, like the plot should be in service of it. All these things should be in service of each other. But at the end of the day, like they kind of come back to the theme, because that's the thing that you're trying to get across with your own voice of loyalty, or good versus evil. So
you're right. Yeah.
Like I said, it's good to have, I think, a couple up front and at least some ideas in your head. So as you're going through, and this is more thinking of my own process, like having a couple, just like 3 or 4, just throw them on the board. Like, this is what I want to talk about. And then, don't force them, don't feel like you have to force the situation, but kind of having in the back of your mind and then seeing what comes through the editing process, I think is okay.
And I'd say take comfort in the fact that you don't need to provide a solution. You just need to raise a question, You can say these things are important and they mean something. What do they mean? I don't know. You tell me. Go write a paper about it.
Just come up with a better question than I did. What is trust? Who do you trust?
I don't think it necessarily needs to be a question, but it's funny because this is the same exact thing that my youngest daughter is learning right now in school.
Oh, yeah.
She is in 4th grade and she's like theme, and they give her a 2-page reading. Yeah. And I ask, what is the theme of this little short story? And it's super direct. It's like the most recent one was called Freddie in the Shade. It was about this kid that wore sunglasses, and he wears the sunglasses to protect himself from change because he recently moved from one coast to the other, and he just doesn't want to engage with anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of neat, like how they tease that out and kind of got my daughter to like that conclusion that, change was one of the main themes there. It's a nice way to teach it. So
I would have said trying to be cool with those sunglasses.
Yeah, cool.
On.
Being a cool guy.
Just being a cool guy. That's my theme.
Yeah, he never seemed cool. He wore them at night. That's
unless you're a blues brother, you don't wear sunglasses at night.
Yeah, or that guy that sang that song.
Or a Terminator.
Because
they don't.
I guess the 80s, it was okay to do it.
Yeah, it definitely was. At least you Cobra. So, I mean, I don't think we have much else to toss onto the theme of pile of wood. I don't know. I'm trying to do some type of allegory or symbolism thing here, and it's not working.
We'll have to cover that in a podcast episode. It's pretty straightforward. And I'd say just make sure you have one in mind before you start writing.
Just throw a couple ideas on the board you want to talk about, and then see what happens. Yeah. So, what have you been watching, reading lately?
Oof, I just started. There's 2 books that I started and never finished, and they're so wildly different. God Emperor Dune, which even inspired me to start up again.
Wow, you jumped to that one, or that's?
I know. That's where I am, and that's the 4th one. So I've read like Dune, Messiah, Children of Dune.
Yeah.
And I had a hard time with God Emperor Dune because worms.
And it takes place like 1,000 years in the future from the original Dune or something like that, right?
Yeah, I think it was right when they introduced all the cloned Duncans that I was like, okay, I'll come back to this later. So I've got that, and then I've got another book that I started and didn't finish was Thomas Pynchon's Vineland, which I was really enjoying. I just never got through it. So those are on deck now. I just finished up White Noise. It's amazing. Really happy I reread that. And then as far as started watching The Curse with Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone.
I haven't heard it.
It's great.
Yeah.
So far. It almost feels like one of his mockumentaries, because mostly he deals in like faux reality TV shows.
Yep.
But it's straight drama, straight fiction. And it's like him and his wife moved to like a small suburban town.
Yeah.
And they start kind of investing in the town, but also investing in these new types of houses through this guise of like they're helping the town, they're going to provide jobs, but really they're just kind of hoping to get a reality show for themselves and kind of become stars in a way. And it deals with them being very polite yet despicable people, and completely unaware of how despicable they are. It's great. It's definitely worth watching. How about you? What are you reading? What are you watching?
Let's see. For reading, I'd finished Dune. I'm starting Dune Messiah again. I've read it. I only read that one once, so I'm doing that one in Children of Dune. I'm kind of going in order here. And I'm going to get into God Emperor. I'm going to do the whole six set.
Did you read Children as well?
Yes.
So why are you rereading all of them? I'm surprised.
I wanted to reread Dune because it'd been a while, but after I had read it before the movie had come out, and I wanted to reread it with the new movie that's come out, and then part 2 is coming out in a couple months. So I kind of wanted to like reorient myself with it. And I'm like, wow, how are they going to do a lot of this? Part 2 is going to have a lot of weird stuff to it. I can't wait to see how they're going to pull that off. And there's some things I kind of forgot about. And then also speaking of the third act, that just kind of like wraps up really quickly in a weird way. Like that second act is so big, and then the third act is just kind of like, oh yeah, he's dead. Oh yeah, he's dead. Oh, and I was like, oh, I thought there's gonna be a little more something here with that, but okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So rereading Dune Messiah now, just started that. I had only read that once, and I kind of want to go back through it. And then I'll do Children of Dune, and then I'm gonna do I'll jump on God and Prayer with you.
I really enjoyed Messiah, and I really enjoyed Children of Dune. Actually, I enjoyed them more than I enjoyed the first novel, crazily enough. I think it was a little easier to read. I think his lexicon and syntax like simplified it a little bit.
I mean, the first book is like over 600 pages, and like the next one's like just about 300. Messiah is like 280 to whatever the paperback. So
yeah,
a little bit tighter of a story.
I'm confounding Messiah and Children. Is he still in the desert in Children?
Oh, don't remember. I don't remember. That's why
I read them back to back, and I'm kind of forgetting where one begins and the other ends. You know,
I think he is, but I don't remember. I'll let you know when I get there.
Cool.
I've been reading this other one called The Tourist, which is like an espionage thriller. It's pretty. My expectations are met with it being an espionage thriller. There's a lot of background of a lot of characters and a lot of, just not a lot of action, a lot of talking, but it's fine. I'm okay with that. So. But I'm enjoying it. And then for watching, I just watched, I'm trying to do movie night now, Monday night movie night. So like,
nice.
So I kind of lost my, like, I feel like I've been watching a lot of bad movies for the other podcast. So I'm just like, I just hate movies because we watch such terrible movies because that's the point of it. So I was like, you know what? I need to have a Monday night where I just watch movies. So on Monday, I watched the Sicario sequel there, Sicario de la Soldado.
How was that?
It was good. I actually really liked it. For a sequel, I thought it was really good. They definitely queued up for a third movie, which I think they've talked about doing. The ending felt like, I think you were expecting something else for the ending. And I was like, man, there's only 10 minutes left. How's this gonna go? And you don't quite get what I think what they tee you up for, which I think at the end I was like initially a little disappointed, but then I was like, you know what? That's okay. It's okay. I still enjoyed the ride. So, and then I watched the new Mike Birbiglia comedy special, who I just love his storytelling, and he's got lots of themes in his latest special of death and life. So, very good. So I'm also watching Bodies on Netflix.
Oh, I heard that was good.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm like 3 episodes into it right now. It's like a limited series, just like I think it's a time travel. Well, yeah, it's somewhat of a time travel. You kind of bounce between 4 different eras of time and trying to solve a murder. So, but yeah, that's been about it. So,
so for that, the Sicario sequel, that was a different director, right, than the original.
Yeah, it wasn't Denis Villeneuve who directed Dune.
I think that's why I held off on it. Is because it felt like, and maybe it's not, but I think through the marketing and the directorship, it felt like a made for. Like a direct to DVD type thing. Yeah, and it's
not. No, not at all. It was good. I mean, it's definitely a little more, I think, actiony than the first one, which that's fine. A lot of movies, sequels that do that. But it definitely carries over the same tone and vibe of the first Sicario, which I really enjoyed, but kind of has its own little flavor, which I think is good. Worth a watch.
Nice. I'll check it out.
That's it. That's our episode. We're done. We're wrapping this up. So Happy New Year, by the way, because this.
Oh, that's right. This is when this comes out. Hey, Happy New Year, Russ.
Hey, thanks, bud. It's the new year. Happy New Year. I hope we both make it because we're recording.
Well, I'm a little sick, so
and I hope this isn't weird when I release this on the 2nd. What are we doing for the next episode? We're going to go query process, right?
Yeah, I think we'll do querying and dealing with rejection.
Yeah. Again, we just love beating ourselves up. So looking forward to that. But yeah, that's it. That's our episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, send it on to somebody would also enjoy it. Follow us on Instagram, Writer Syndrome Books. We're on Twitter, Writer_Syndrome. But head to the website, find all the episodes. If you want to reach out for any feedback or interested in doing an interview and you're an author, hit us up at writersyndrome.com.